All righty, this is the continuation of the simplify rational expression. Remember, a rational expression is just a bunch of fractions. So we're going to do multiplying and dividing. This really is very similar to what I previously did, except, the first video was just that. When you add more, it's the same exact thing, except it's just a lot more factoring and a lot more canceling. So here I have to divide. So, just like the rule, when I did something like this, you keep change, flip. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one, only through video magic here. So I snap the fingers and the thing is flipped already, right? So kept it the same, changed this to times, flip this over. Now, really just factor everything. I can't stress how, if the factoring is not there, if you're not able to factor these quickly, you got to go back and watch every friggin' factoring video again and again and just practice the worksheets and practice problems, because you can't do this. If you're sitting there spending like 90 seconds thinking about how to factor each one, this is a binomial. There's nothing in common. Perfect square, perfect square. So it's a difference of squares. So something times itself with the opposite sign. Now on the bottom, the signs are different. I know that because of this. The signs are the same if this is plus. So I need two numbers whose product is 7. I mean, there aren't any. It's 1 and 7. So you put 7 and 1, and the larger number gets that sign. You do it backwards, that's fine. Times. Okay, so that's the first one. Nothing crosses out yet. Now over here, this is a binomial, but it's got no squared, and 4 and 8 are divisible by 4. So you have to factor out the greatest common factor. Divide everything by 4. 28 divided by 4 is 7, not a coincidence. See, here you have a GCF of 2. You factor out the 2. Divide everything by 2. Divide this by 2, divide this by 2, right? You always multiply it, make sure it works. It should be obvious, but if you factor any one of the 4 things wrong, right? You have 2 tops and 2 bottoms, that's 4 things. If you factor any one of them wrong, whole fucking problem is over. You're going to cross out the wrong things, and nothing's going to cross out, and then you're completely screwed. So let's see. X minus 3s, cross out. X plus 7s, cross out. Now, you can do a little more. 4 is divisible by 2. These are gone now, right? There are 1s there. You don't have to write the 1s. 2 goes into 4 twice. So who's left? This is left with the 2. So everybody on top, he's left and he's left. You don't have to multiply this, leave it like that. He's gone, he's gone, he's gone, he's left. That's it, right? Don't do nothing crazy at this point. You're going to cross out the X's. I mean, I see so many students cross out these X's. They'll cross out the X squareds. I mean, I see a lot of really ridiculous, nonsensical things. Just these problems are all factoring. You can only cross out things when they are being multiplied together, right? When there's a times here, that's what you're crossing out. So I'll work a few more. I mean, they're a little time consuming because it's a lot of factoring, but really it's not that difficult. Okay, so this is number 6. Fortunately, it's a product, so I don't have to flip anything. I would flip this one if this was division. So again, I'm just going to dive in. Over here, I see an X squared. I see a binomial, but it is not a difference of squares. This one is. So the only thing you can look for is something in common. They have an X in common. They both have X in it. So you take out the X, right? Move it to the front. Divide everybody by X. Right? This was GCF. That was type 1. That was the very first factoring method I taught you. Underneath it is the difference of squares. So you're going to put X plus 2, X minus 2. Ooh, already crossing out. Now, this one on the top here is tricky. It's not type 2 because there's a 1 in front and there's no GCF. These are not all divisible by 3 and they don't have a letter in common. So this is the type 5. So now if you want to do it on the side, I'll do it real quick, right? You multiply the last number by the first number. Well, you can just sit there and try to figure out the combinations. It's not that difficult, but this is what I taught you to do. The only way you're going to get to 5 here with different signs is 6 and 1. And then you're going to divide them each by 3. So you get x minus 2, and then move the 3 up. You get 3x plus 1. So, if you need to do this on the side, you need to do this on the side. It is what it is. If you can kind of sit there and figure out the pairs in your head, it's not that difficult to guess because it has to be 3x and x, and it has to be 2 and 1. You're either going to put the 2 here or the 1 there, or the 1 here and the 2 here. So, you can just try a couple combinations until you get it, or you can use the trick and get it in one shot. It's up to you. Now on the bottom, you have to be careful here. You have a 6 and a 2. They're both divisible by 2. So remember, right? You're dividing the 2 away, moving it in the front. Here you get 3x plus 1. You think that's a coincidence? No, that's not a coincidence that you have the same thing right above it. These are designed. I start here. I create the question from this, and then I just multiply it out and give you that at the top. And you just have to undo what I did. So I always start here because I know what I want you to cross out. So these cross out. If you want to put the 1, put the 1 there. Okay, now you're going to cross out the x plus 2s. Those are gone. Whoa, look at this. The x minus 2 is also crossed out. I'm going to have to go blue this time. So cross those out. Everybody's gone. He's still there. Gone, 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 gone. He's still there. So everybody is gone, but this x on top, 2 on the bottom. What else you can do? So really the hardest part of that one was that you had a type 5 thrown in there. Do it on the side, work it out. It's still, it was designed to cross out. So as long as you factor it right, everything is going to cross out. All right, so problem 8's a little beefed up. There's a lot more polynomials, and there aren't any GCF ones here. So, but as you go, you understand these problems get very redundant. It's just factoring, factoring, factoring. 2 tops, 2 bottoms, factor, 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 and then just cross out the stuff. Now, this one's a pain because 60 has a lot of factors, but we spent a lot of time doing this. If you need to, you can write out your pairs, or you can realize that it's 12 and 5, right? You have to make 60. These numbers multiply to 60. If you do negative 12 plus 5, you get negative 7, okay? Now, the nice thing is the bottom is the difference of squares. How do I know? It's a binomial, perfect square, right? There's a 1 there. 1's a perfect square. And then 25. So something times itself, and they get opposite signs. If you want to go minus plus, that's fine too. All right, so I always factor one fraction at a time. I don't just go top, top, and then bottom, bottom. I factor the top and the bottom, and then I factor the top and the bottom. That's just the way I do it. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can just factor all the tops first, and then all the bottoms second. It's totally up to you. Now, here I know, and I've said in class before, if you see plus, plus, you put plus, plus. This is the only time you can ever do that. You can never just drop the signs down. A lot of people like to just drop the signs. They're like, oh, just drop these signs. Just drop these signs. But look, it doesn't work. Yeah, this sign drops, but this sign doesn't drop. But here, when there's plus, plus, you just put plus, plus. Now, it can't be 6 and 1 because 6 plus 1 doesn't make 5. Right? If you put a 6 and a 1 here, you don't get 5. You have to put 3 and 2. And again, this is super important. You pick the wrong pair or the wrong signs, whole problem, shot. It's going to be wrong. I mean, nothing's going to, what is supposed to cross out isn't going to cross out. If you factor any of these things wrong, you're not going to get the correct things to cross out. So now, this is a perfect example of where you can mess up because you can get 10 in 2 different ways with 24. 6 and 4 make 10, right? 6 times 4 is 24, 12 times 2 is 24. You have 2 numbers whose product is 24. 6 and 4, if you add them, you make 10. 12 and 2, if you subtract them, you make 10. And if you pick wrong, goodbye, right? So you have to be very, very careful. Now notice that I have a 12 here, right? So it should tell you what you need to pick. I mean, usually what you see on the top, if you don't see it on the bottom, the odds are you factored something on the bottom wrong. I mean, not always. I mean, a lot of times there's going to be something left over, but if you have like 2 or 3 things left over, you definitely screwed up somewhere. This is how you check your mistake. If a lot of stuff doesn't cross out, then you factored one of the things wrong. This has to be negative 12 plus 2. Now look at that. The 12s, the twos, right? I mean, fives, a lot of it crosses out. You know, the x minus 12s cross out, even though I wrote my twos differently. And then the x plus fives cross out. Now the only thing left to cross out is the x plus twos. Everybody on top is gone except for x plus 3. Everybody on the bottom, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. You just have x minus 5 left. If this doesn't happen to you, you know, if you end up with two things on top, two things on bottom, they're not rigged that way. I'm not going to design the problem so that one thing crosses out and nothing else does. I'm not going to do this so that you can cross out the x minus 12s and then nothing else crosses out. That's ridiculous. The whole point of this question is for all the shit to cross out. That's what we want. We design it that way. Now, again, don't do anything dumbass. You're not going to cross out the x's. You get 3/5. You don't get 3/5. You don't get negative 3/5. The signs are different. You can't cross out those x's, no matter how bad you want to. I mean, no matter how many times I explain this in class, see people still go for it. I mean, I'll make my classic example, right? That's 5/2. Oh, you know what? Well, yeah, I guess I have to leave it as a 1. If you cross out these 3s, you don't get 5/2. First of all, if you keep this 1 here, you would have 1 minus 1 on the bottom, which is ridiculous, right? Which is 0. And if you don't keep those 1s there, if you just decide you're going to cross out the 3s and do nothing with them, you get -2. -2 is not 5 divided by 2. I mean, this doesn't work. You can't cross out like that. All right, so I guess I'll pick one more to do because, like I said, these are very repetitive after a while. So, all right, so this is 9. I was looking at the problem very carefully. I think I might start 12 a little bit, but I don't want to really do too many more because it takes a lot of time. Again, division, keep, change, flip. So rather than watching me erase the board and write it over again, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to snap my fingers and then it'll be changed. So snap. All right, so I flipped, keep, change, flip. So that's all you do, but you must do that first. Do not attempt to factor until you have flipped. If you ever see the division symbol, flip the second one, change it to multiplication. Now again, just dive in and factor. I like to go top, bottom, top, bottom. You can go all across. I already said whatever you want to do. I'm going to factor the top of this fraction. I know it's x and x. I know this is type 2. You know, it's either 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. It can't be 2 and 2 because you have a 5 in the middle. I remember what I said on the last problem. If you see plus plus, you put plus plus. So it has to be 4 and 1. Can't be anything else. My plus looks a little uncomfortably close to that x there. There we go. Now on the bottom tricky. They don't recognize that type. There's only 2 terms. There's only 2 terms, but it's not the same, right? Type 1. I told you when I taught it to you that you would always forget. Always look. The first thing you do when you factor, is there something in common? 2, 2. Hello, they're both divisible by 2. Look, x squared, x1. They have a letter in common. So now you're going to be very careful here. I'm going to divide out 2x. All right, so you might have trouble. You need to do this. All right, put the 2x in the front. Here, you're going to cross out the 2's. You're left with an x. Here, 2 divided by 2 is 1. You have to be very, very careful. I see people just cross these out and, you know, they just write 2x there. That doesn't make sense. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 1, 2x. So I know I factored it correctly. The top of this, type 2, you put x and you put x. The signs are different. So 12 and 1, no. 6 and 2, no. It's got to be 4 and 3. You got to make a 1 in the middle. Right? Now, if you're not able to do it as fast as I just did, you should go back and review type 2. It's that simple. You have to be able to look and tell what pair, what signs. You have to be able to do this quickly at this point because these problems will take forever if you're sitting there trying to think about, well, I don't know which one this is. This is a difference of squares. I mean, you should easily be able to recognize these by now. Something times itself, right? It's 8 and 2. No, it's not. It's 4 and 4. 1 gets the minus, 1 gets the plus. And for convenience, I'll put the minus there. Now I'm going to cross out as much as I can. I don't know how much is going to cross out. I see x plus 4 and I see x plus 4. You know, I see x plus 1 and x plus 1. And then, of course, my x plus 4s, right? And, you know, like I said, everything, not everything, most of the things cross out, rigged that way. I make these problems myself, so I know how they're going to work. And if you don't get things to cross out, you get it wrong. So all I can do is write down what's left over. And again, don't do the dumbass thing. You could cross out the X's. Cannot cross out those X's, no matter how bad you want to. This one is easier to show you with numbers. You know, if I had 2 plus 3 over 2, this is 5 over 2. If you cross out these 2's, you cross out the 2's. This is not the 5 divided by 2 is not 3. So it just doesn't work, right? That's what you get. Now, I did want to start. I'm going to begin 12 because some of the factoring in 12 is a little tricky. I don't want to do the whole thing, but I'm just going to do part of it. All right, so I wrote 12 up there just to kind of begin it. I don't know if I'm going to run through the whole thing, but there are 2 spots in this that, you know, I can see giving people trouble. One of them is here, and one of them is here. Now I'll do this one first. This is a GCF. You may not recognize it. This one is very easy to recognize, right? You divide them both by 4. You get 4x plus 1. This one is much harder to recognize. I guess I was going to erase it. You know, it's tricky to spot. There's nothing in common. They don't have a letter in common, but 9 and 15 are both divisible by 3. So you would have to factor a 3 out from here. Now you have to be careful when you do it, right? You're going to just divide the numbers by 3. Put the 3 in the front. 9 divided by 3 is 3. The X stays. It's important. The X don't go away. Plus 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now I'm going to give you a super big hint here. If you look at this, yes, you can use the trick and get it in 2 minutes. But if you just put 3x and x down, and then you look over here, this problem is designed for that to cross out. That is why I have 3x plus 5 on the top of this fraction. This is going to, I guarantee you that this is 3x plus 5. Now, if you know that this is 5, there's only one number that can go here to make a 10 when you multiply it, and that has to be a 2. And I also know that the signs are different. So you can factor the bottom without even doing it. If you just use some common sense and look at the top of the other one and say, well, you know, it has to, something has to match. And it does. All right. So if you don't like that, don't do that. You can just multiply the 10 by 3, do the whole thing. You're still going to get 3x plus 5. It still works. But this is the one I wanted to do because this one will get people fits. This, it looks like a difference of squares. I mean, it's a perfect square and a perfect square. So you might go, oh, something times itself, something times itself. The problem with that is that there's GCF here. And I've told you time and time again, the GCF must be done first. If there is a GCF, if there is a common factor in each of the things, you must remove it or you will get it wrong. You cannot. So this is type 6, the mixed one. You must first factor out this 4. They're each divisible by 4. You have to do that first. And then you keep going. Now, there was one like this on a quiz I gave. You had to factor out, I believe it was a 2 you had to factor out. And then you continued to factor after that. So, you know, if I gave you something like this, you have to factor out the 2 first. And then this would be x plus 2, x minus 2, right? It's the same principle. This is 2-step factoring. Step 1, GCF comes out. Step 2, you keep factoring what was left over. So this would go there. And if you notice, this would be up there. This 4 is going to cross out. This x plus 1 is going to cross out. I mean, again, a lot of stuff's going to cross out. But the key to that is recognizing, you know, that this was 2-step factoring, not 1-step. Because if you just put 2x plus 2, 2x minus 2, you can get it wrong. You're going to look at it and you're not going to see anything that crosses out. And you're just going to have almost everything left over. That never happens with these questions. These questions, almost all of the things will cross out. I cannot stress this enough, right? Everything crosses out. So it's, you know, this one is certainly more advanced. This was more difficult. This was difficult, and this was tricky with the being divisible by 3. Not everybody spots that. Again, the only real advice I can give you if you're struggling, go back and review types 1 through 5. No, type 6 too. But you know, you must be able to factor quickly. and efficiently and correctly. You know, the speed is one thing, but if you're factoring things wrong, if you're getting signs wrong and pairs wrong, it's going to be a train wreck because there's a lot of things, right? There's four things altogether, two tops, two bottoms, and if you can't factor them right, you know, the problem's not going to work out well for you. So again, just when you do these problems, don't rush through them. You know, make sure you're going through, take your time, but double check your factoring. After you have factored things, make sure, right? 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 5 is 15. Make sure that you factored them right. Make sure your signs are right. Make sure that everything worked the way it was supposed to, and then start crossing out. So well, there you go. Good luck.